I'll start, Sophia said. One good thing is that I made a new friend at school. One thing I want to work on is helping Grandma more with cooking. I'd love that, Catherine said. We could start with those chocolate chip cookies you like. My turn, Diego said. One good thing is that I got an A on my science project. One thing I want to work on is keeping my room cleaner. Good goals, Michael said. Jessica. One good thing is that I closed 3 house sales this week, Jessica said. One thing I want to work on is being more patient when I'm stressed. Catherine appreciated Jessica's honesty. Her daughter-in-law still had moments of tension and impatience, but she was making conscious efforts to improve. Catherine, Michael asked. One good thing is that my garden is thriving, Catherine said. One thing I want to work on is learning to use that tablet you bought me so I can video chat with my friends. I'll teach you, Sophia offered. It's easy, once you get the hang of it. My turn, Michael said. One good thing is that my business is growing, and I might be able to hire another employee. One thing I want to work on is making sure I don't get so busy with work that I forget to spend time with my family. That's a good goal, Dad, Sophia said. Remember what happened before? Michael nodded. I remember, sweetheart, and I'm never going to let work become more important than family again. After the family meeting, Catherine and Michael sat on the front porch, enjoying the cool evening air. Michael, Catherine said, I want you to know how proud I am of the changes you've made. What changes? Michael asked. You've become more thoughtful, more grateful, more aware of how your actions affect others, Catherine said. You've learned to see people as complete human beings rather than just in terms of what they can do for you. I had a good teacher, Michael said. You had a hard lesson, Catherine corrected. But you chose to learn from it instead of becoming bitter about it. Mom, Michael said, I want you to know that losing that house was the best thing that ever happened to me. Why? Catherine asked. Because it forced me to examine my priorities and my values, Michael said. It made me realize that I was becoming someone I didn't like, someone who was entitled, ungrateful, and selfish. And now? Catherine asked. Now I know what's really important, Michael said. Family relationships, treating people with respect, being grateful for what I have instead of always wanting more. Catherine smiled. Those are good lessons to learn. They're lessons I'm going to teach my children, Michael said. I want Sophia and Diego to understand that success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how you treat people along the way. They're already learning those lessons, Catherine said. They see how you treat me now, and they're learning that family members take care of each other. A year later, the Rodriguez family celebrated Catherine's 70th birthday with a party that was everything her 68th birthday had not been. The house was filled with friends, neighbors, and extended family members who had come to honor a woman who had taught her family the true meaning of love, forgiveness, and second chances. I want to make a toast, Michael said, raising his glass, as the party guests gathered around, to my mother, who taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about love, respect, and commitment to each other. To Catherine, Jessica added, who showed me that it's never too late to learn how. 6 months after moving into their new home, the Rodriguez family had settled into a rhythm that was both familiar and completely different from their previous life. The house Catherine had bought them was smaller than their previous home, but it felt larger because it was filled with genuine love and respect rather than tension and entitlement. Grandma, Diego said one Saturday morning, as he helped Catherine in the garden she had planted in their backyard, are you happy living with us again? Catherine smiled as she watched her 11-year-old grandson carefully water the tomato plants. Very happy, sweetheart. Are you happy having me here? Yes, Diego said without hesitation. It's better when you're here. Dad smiles more, and Mom is nicer. Catherine had noticed the changes in her family too. Michael had become more attentive, more grateful, and more aware of how his actions affected others. Jessica, while still adjusting to the new dynamic, was making genuine efforts to include Catherine in family decisions and treat her as a valued family member rather than an inconvenience. Catherine, Jessica said, joining them in the garden, I wanted to ask your opinion about something. What's that? Catherine asked, pleased that Jessica was seeking her input. Michael and I are thinking about taking a family vacation this summer, Jessica said. We were wondering if you'd like to help us plan it. Catherine felt touched by the invitation to participate in family planning. I'd love to help. Where are you thinking of going? We were thinking about a beach house rental, Jessica said, somewhere the kids could swim and we could all relax together. That sounds wonderful, Catherine said. I know some beautiful places on the Gulf Coast that might be perfect. As Jessica and Catherine discussed vacation options, Michael watched from the kitchen window with a sense of amazement. 6 months ago, Jessica had been plotting to get rid of his mother. Now, they were planning family vacations together. Dad, Sophia said, joining him at the window, you look happy. I am happy, Michael said, putting his arm around his 14-year-old daughter. We have everything we need right here. Even though this house is smaller than our old one, Sophia asked. Especially because this house is smaller, Michael said. Sophia, do you know why this house feels better than our old one? Because Grandma is happy here, Sophia guessed. That's part of it, Michael said. But also because this house was given to us out of love, not bought with hidden money. We know exactly where it came from and why we have it. Because Grandma loves us even when we mess up, Sophia said. Exactly, Michael said. And because we've learned to love her the way she deserves to be loved. The transformation in their family relationships had been remarkable. Michael had started a tradition of weekly one-on-one time with his mother, where they would go for walks, have coffee, or simply sit and talk about their lives. These conversations had helped him understand his mother as a complete person with her own interests, fears, and dreams, rather than just as his parent. Mom, Michael said during one of their walks, I want you to know how grateful I am for the second chance you gave us. You don't need to keep thanking me, Catherine said. Michael, seeing you become the man I always knew you could be is thanks enough. But I do need to keep thanking you, Michael said. Mom, I need to make sure I never forget how close I came to losing you forever. You didn't lose me, Catherine said. You just lost sight of me for a while. What do you mean? Michael asked. I mean, you forgot to see me as a person, Catherine said. You started seeing me as a problem to be solved or a burden to be managed. And now? Michael asked. Now you see me as your mother who loves you and wants to be part of your life, Catherine said. Michael nodded. Mom, can I ask you something that's been bothering me? Of course, Catherine said. When you forced the sale of our house, were you planning all along to buy us a new one? Michael asked. Catherine thought about the question carefully. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I knew I wanted you to understand the consequences of your actions, but I hadn't decided how far I was willing to take it. What changed your mind? Michael asked. Watching how you handled the situation, Catherine said. Michael, you could have fought me in court, tried to prove I was mentally incompetent, or blamed me for your problems. Instead, you accepted responsibility and showed genuine remorse. So the new house was a reward for good behavior? Michael asked. The new house was a gift from a mother who loves her son and wants him to succeed, Catherine said. But Michael, it was also a test. What kind of test? Michael asked. A test to see if you would treat me differently when you knew I had the power to take everything away again, Catherine said. And, Michael asked. And you've passed that test, Catherine said. You're treating me well not because you're afraid of losing the house, but because you've learned to value our relationship. Their conversation was interrupted by Jessica calling from their front porch. Michael, Catherine, come quick. They hurried back to the house to find Jessica holding an official-looking envelope. What is it? Michael asked. It's from the city, Jessica said. Something about a property tax assessment. Michael opened the envelope and read the contents, his face breaking into a smile. What does it say? Catherine asked. It says our property taxes are being reduced because the house is now classified as a multi-generational family home, Michael said. Apparently, there are tax benefits for families who live together to care for elderly relatives. Elderly relatives? Catherine asked with mock indignation. I'm 68, not 98. To the city, you're elderly, Jessica said with a laugh. But to us, you're just family. Catherine felt warmth spread through her chest at Jessica's words. Her daughter-in-law had come a long way from the woman who had tried to evict her 6 months ago. That evening, the family gathered for their weekly family meeting, another tradition they had started since moving into the new house. Okay, Michael said, let's go around the table and share one good thing that happened this week and one thing we want to work on. The day of the house sale arrived, with the cold efficiency of a business transaction. Michael and Jessica stood in their empty living room, surrounded by boxers and the remnants of the life they had built over 3 years. The new owners would take possession in 2 hours, and the Rodriguez family would officially be homeless. I can't believe this is really happening, Jessica said, looking around the bare room where they had celebrated birthdays, holidays, and countless family moments. It's happening because we made it happen, Michael said quietly. He had spent the past month coming to terms with the consequences of their actions, and he no longer blamed his mother for their situation. Daddy, Sophia said, walking into the room with tears in her eyes, I don't want to leave. Michael hugged his 14-year-old daughter, feeling his heart break for the pain he had caused his children. I know, sweetheart, I'm sorry this is happening. Why can't Grandma just forgive us? Diego asked. We said we were sorry. Sometimes sorry isn't enough, Michael explained. Sometimes when you hurt someone badly, they need more than words to heal. The moving truck had already taken their belongings to a small 3-bedroom rental house across town, a house that cost nearly as much as their mortgage had, but was half the size and in a much less desirable neighborhood. The children would have to change schools, leave their friends, and adjust to a completely different life. Mr. Rodriguez, said the real estate agent, entering the house with a folder of documents. I need you to sign the final transfer papers. Michael signed the papers with a heavy heart, officially giving up any claim to the house that had been his family's home. The sale had netted exactly what he had calculated, $120,000. After paying off the mortgage and legal fees, the proceeds check will be available tomorrow, the agent said. You can pick it up at our office. As the agent left, Michael's phone rang. It was his mother's lawyer. Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Patterson said, Mrs. Rodriguez would like to meet with you and your family this afternoon. Michael was surprised. Catherine had refused all contact during the sale process. Yes, Mr. Patterson said. She'd like you to come to my office at 3 o'clock. Please bring your wife and children. Is this about the money? Michael asked. Because we're not going to fight her for a larger share. Just be there at 3, Mr. Patterson said, and hung up. Michael told Jessica about the meeting, and they spent the next few hours speculating about what Catherine might want. Maybe she's going to gloat, Jessica said bitterly. Maybe she wants to see how miserable we are. I don't think that's it, Michael said. Mom isn't cruel. She forced us out of our home, Jessica pointed out. She forced us to face the consequences of our actions, Michael corrected. There's a difference. At 3 o'clock, the Rodriguez family sat in Mr. Patterson's conference room, waiting for Catherine to arrive. When she walked in, Michael was struck by how different she looked. Gone was the fragile, defeated woman he had seen in the hotel. Catherine looked strong, determined, and somehow younger than she had in months. Hello, Michael, Jessica, children, Catherine said, taking a seat across from them. Hi, Grandma, Sophia said quietly. We missed you. Catherine's expression softened as she looked at her grandchildren. I missed you too, sweetheart. Mrs. Rodriguez, Mr. Patterson said. Would you like me to explain the situation? No, Catherine said. I'll handle this myself. Catherine looked directly at Michael and Jessica. I suppose you're wondering why I asked you here. Yes, Michael said. Mom, if this is about the money from the sale, we're not going to contest your share. This isn't about the money, Catherine said. This is about something much more important. What? Jessica asked. This is about family, Catherine said, and about the lessons we've all learned over the past month. Catherine pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. Michael, do you understand why I forced the sale of the house? Because we hurt you, Michael said. Because we tried to kick you out when we thought you were powerless. That's part of it, Catherine said. But there's more. What more? Michael asked. I wanted you to understand what it feels like to lose your home and your security. Catherine said, I wanted you to experience the fear and uncertainty that I felt when you told me I had to leave. We understand now, Michael said. Mom, we've learned our lesson. Have you? Catherine asked. Michael, what have you learned? Michael thought carefully about his answer. I've learned that I was ungrateful and entitled. I've learned that I took your generosity for granted. I've learned that family relationships require respect and consideration. And Catherine prompted, and I've learned that actions have consequences, Michael said. I've learned that you can't treat people badly and expect them to continue helping you, Catherine nodded. Those are important lessons. Jessica, what have you learned? Jessica looked uncomfortable being put on the spot. I've learned that we shouldn't have asked you to leave. Why shouldn't you have asked me to leave? Catherine pressed. Because it was mean, Jessica said weakly. Jessica, Catherine said firmly, I need you to understand something more fundamental than that. What? Jessica asked. I need you to understand that I'm not just Michael's mother, Catherine said. I'm a person with my own feelings, my own dignity, and my own rights. Jessica nodded. though Michael could see that she was still struggling to fully grasp the concept. Now, Catherine said, opening her folder, I want to show you something. Catherine pulled out a legal document and placed it on the table. This is the deed to a house. Michael looked at the document and saw an address he didn't recognize. Whose house? Yours, Catherine said simply. Ours. Michael was confused. Mom, we just lost our house. You lost the house where you lived, Catherine said, but I've purchased a different house for you. Michael stared at his mother in shock. You've bought us a house. Michael hugged his daughter, feeling the full weight of what his actions had cost his family. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry. That night, Michael made a decision. If his mother wouldn't see him, he would write her a letter. He would pour his heart out and hope that she would find it in herself to forgive him. Dear Mom, Michael wrote, I know you don't want to see me right now, and I understand why. What Jessica and I did to you was unforgivable. We took your generosity for granted. We treated you like a burden instead of a blessing, and we repaid your kindness with cruelty. I know now that you helped us buy this house. I know that you've been supporting us for 3 years without us even realizing it. I know that when we thought you had nothing to offer us, you actually had everything to offer us. I'm not writing this letter to ask you to change your mind about the house. If you want to sell it, that's your right. I'm writing to tell you that I'm sorry, and that I love you, and that I hope someday you can forgive me for being such a terrible son. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm asking anyway, because you're my mother, and I don't know what else to do. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Michael sealed the letter and drove to the Hampton Inn, leaving it at the front desk with instructions to deliver it to his mother's room. The next morning, Catherine sat in her hotel room reading her son's letter. She felt tears streaming down her face as she read his words of remorse and regret. For a moment, she considered calling off the legal proceedings. Michael seemed genuinely sorry, and she could hear the pain in his words, but then she remembered how it felt to be told to move out on her birthday. She remembered Jessica's satisfied expression when she thought Catherine was finally leaving. She remembered feeling like an unwelcome burden in a house that she had made possible. Catherine folded the letter and put it in her purse. She was touched by Michael's apology, but she wasn't ready to forgive him yet. Some lessons were too important to be learned easily. Michael and Jessica were about to discover what it felt like to lose everything, just as Catherine had felt when they tried to take away her home and her family. The forced sale of the house would proceed as planned, and Catherine would make sure that Michael and Jessica understood the full consequences of their actions. But Catherine had one more surprise for them. A surprise that would teach them the ultimate lesson about family, loyalty, and the true meaning of home. 3 weeks after Catherine filed the petition for partition and sale, Michael and Jessica were living in a nightmare they had created for themselves. The legal process was moving forward with devastating efficiency, and their dream home was about to be sold out from under them. Michael, Jessica said as she sat surrounded by real estate listings for apartments they could barely afford. We need to face reality. We're going to lose this house. I know, Michael said quietly. He had been hoping against hope that his mother would change her mind, but Catherine had remained completely unreachable. Her lawyer handled all communication, and the message was clear. The sale would proceed as planned. The realtor says we need to be out in 60 days, Jessica continued. Michael, where are we going to go with $120,000? That's not enough for a down payment on anything decent in this area. Michael looked around their beautiful living room, the room where his children had played, where they had hosted family gatherings, where they had built what they thought was their perfect life. Soon, it would all belong to someone else. Maybe we'll have to move to a different part of town, Michael said. Somewhere more affordable. Somewhere more affordable means somewhere worse, Jessica said bitterly. Michael, we're going to go from this beautiful house to some cramped apartment or tiny house in a bad neighborhood. It's what we deserve, Michael said, surprising his wife with his acceptance of their fate. What we deserve, Jessica asked. Michael, your mother is destroying our family over a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Michael said firmly. Jessica, we tried to kick out the woman who made our life possible. We treated her like garbage when we thought she was powerless. This isn't about misunderstanding. This is about consequences. Jessica stared at her husband, realizing that he had fundamentally changed his perspective on their situation. So you're just going to accept this? You're going to let your mother destroy our lives? Our lives aren't destroyed, Michael said. We're just learning what it's like to live without advantages we didn't even know we had. The children are going to have to change schools, Jessica said. They're going to lose their friends, their activities, their whole world. Michael felt the weight of that reality. Sofia and Diego had been devastated when they learned they would have to move. They didn't understand why their grandmother was angry, and they couldn't comprehend why their secure world was falling apart. Dad, Sofia had said the night before, can't you just apologize to Grandma and make her forgive you? I've tried, sweetheart, Michael had replied. But sometimes when you hurt someone badly enough, they can't forgive you right away. But she's family, Diego had said. Family is supposed to forgive each other. Michael had struggled to explain to his children that family relationships require respect and consideration, and that he had failed to show those qualities to their grandmother. Now, as Michael sat in his soon-to-be former living room, he was beginning to understand the full scope of the lesson his mother was teaching him. Jessica, Michael said, I want you to understand something. What? Jessica asked. Mom could have told us about her ownership from the beginning, Michael said. She could have held it over our heads, made demands, treated us like tenants. Instead, she let us live here for 3 years, thinking it was our house. So, Jessica said, so she was incredibly generous and selfless, Michael said. And we repaid that generosity by trying to throw her out when we decided she was inconvenient. Michael, she was cramping our style, Jessica said, though her words sounded hollow even to herself. Our style? Michael asked. Jessica, we were living in a house we couldn't afford without her help, and we were complaining that the person who made it possible was cramping our style. Jessica was beginning to see their situation from a different perspective, and she didn't like what she saw. So, what are you saying? I'm saying we were ungrateful, entitled, and cruel, Michael said, and now we're facing the consequences of our actions. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Michael opened it to find a woman in a business suit holding a clipboard. Mr. Rodriguez, the woman asked. I'm Sarah Chen from Premier Real Estate. I'm here to do the final walkthrough before we list the property. Michael felt sick to his stomach. Already the court order requires us to move quickly, Sarah said. The sooner we list, the sooner we can close and distribute the proceeds. Michael let Sarah into the house and watched as she took photos and measurements. Every click of her camera felt like another nail in the coffin of his family's life. This is a beautiful property, Sarah said as she worked. It should sell quickly in this market. How quickly? Jessica asked. Probably within 30 days, Sarah said. Maybe less. Houses like this are in high demand. Michael felt the walls closing in around him. In 30 days, his family would be homeless. Mr. Rodriguez, Sarah said, I need to ask, do you have somewhere to go when the sale closes? We're working on it, Michael said, though they had found nothing they could afford. You might want to work faster, Sarah said. The new owners will want to take possession immediately. After Sarah left, Michael and Jessica sat in stunned silence. The reality of their situation was becoming more concrete by the day. Michael, Jessica said finally, maybe we should consider fighting this in court. On what grounds? Michael asked. I don't know, Jessica said desperately. Maybe we can argue that your mother's ownership was fraudulent or something. We're not going to lose everything, Jessica said, though she sounded less confident than before. There has to be some way to fight this. Fight what? Michael asked. Fight the fact that she helped us buy our house. Fight the fact that she hid this from us, Jessica said. There has to be some legal issue with her not disclosing her ownership. Michael wasn't so sure. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that his mother had been incredibly generous. She had provided the majority of their down payment and had never asked for anything in return. She had never demanded rent, never interfered with their decisions about the house, never even mentioned her financial contribution. Jessica, Michael said slowly, I think we've been incredibly stupid. What do you mean? Jessica asked. I mean Mom has been helping us for 3 years without us even knowing it, Michael said. She's been living in a house that she mostly owns, and she's never said a word about it. So Jessica said, so we just tried to kick out the person who made it possible for us to have this house in the first place. Michael said. Jessica was beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. What do we do now? We pray that Mom is willing to forgive us, Michael said. But Catherine wasn't in a forgiving mood. She was in her lawyer's office, planning her next move. Mrs. Rodriguez, Mr. Patterson said, I've prepared the ownership notice. What would you like me to do next? I want you to file a petition with the court, Catherine said. I want to assert my rights as the majority owner of the property. What specific rights do you want to assert? Mr. Patterson asked. I want the right to determine who lives in my house, Catherine said. And right now, I don't want Michael and Jessica living there. Mrs. Rodriguez, that's a very aggressive position, Mr. Patterson warned. You could essentially force them to move out of their own home. It's not their home, Catherine said firmly. It's my home. They live there at my discretion. Are you sure you want to take this approach? Mr. Patterson asked. This could permanently damage your relationship with your son. My son damaged our relationship when he tried to evict me on my birthday, Catherine said. Now he's going to learn what it feels like to be on the receiving end. Mr. Patterson nodded and began preparing the legal paperwork. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is going to get very complicated very quickly. Good, Catherine said. Maybe Michael and Jessica will learn to think before they act. As Catherine left the lawyer's office, she felt a mixture of sadness and determination. She had hoped that her son would treat her with love and respect regardless of her financial situation. Instead, he had shown her that when he thought she was powerless, he was willing to discard her like trash. Now Michael and Jessica were about to learn that Catherine was far from powerless. In fact, she held all the cards in this game, and she was about to play them in ways that would shock everyone involved. The woman they had tried to evict was about to evict them, and there was nothing they could do to stop her. 2 days after receiving the ownership documents, Michael and Jessica were living in a state of panic and disbelief. Every attempt to reach Catherine had failed. Her phone went to voicemail. She wasn't answering her door, and she seemed to have vanished completely. Michael, we need to do something, Jessica said as she paced around their living room. The living room that they were now discovering they didn't actually own. We can't just sit here waiting for your mother to destroy our lives. What do you suggest we do? Michael asked, slumped on the couch with his head in his hands. She owns 60% of this house. She has all the power here. There has to be something wrong with those documents, Jessica insisted. People don't just secretly buy majority ownership in houses without telling anyone. Apparently they do, Michael said miserably. Jessica, I've been thinking about this for 2 days, and it all makes sense now. What makes sense? Jessica demanded. How we were able to afford this house in the first place, Michael said. Do you remember how surprised we were when the bank approved our mortgage? How the down payment seemed to work out so perfectly? Jessica stopped pacing. You think your mother was involved from the beginning? I think Mom made it possible for us to buy this house, and we never even knew it, Michael said. Jessica, we've been living in her house for 3 years, treating her like a burden when she's actually been our benefactor. So what? Jessica said defensively. We didn't ask her to do that, didn't we? Michael asked. Jessica, do you remember how stressed we were about finding a house we could afford? How many times we talked about needing help with the down payment? Jessica did. Remember, they had been struggling to save enough money for a down payment on any decent house in Austin's expensive market. Then, suddenly, everything had fallen into place perfectly. But she should have told us, Jessica said. Should she have? Michael asked. Jessica, what would we have done if we had known Mom owned 60% of the house? Jessica thought about the question and realized she didn't like the answer. If they had known Catherine was the majority owner, they probably would have treated her very differently, with more respect, more deference, more consideration for her wishes. That's exactly why she didn't tell us, Michael said, reading his wife's expression. She wanted to see how we would treat her when we thought she had nothing to offer us, and we failed the test, Jessica said quietly. We failed spectacularly, Michael agreed. Their conversation was interrupted by another knock at the door. This time, it was a different process server with another envelope. Michael Rodriguez. The server asked. Yes, Michael said with dread. You're being served with a petition for partition and sale, the server said, handing over the documents. Michael opened the envelope and felt his knees go weak. She's forcing us to sell the house. What? Jessica grabbed the papers and read them frantically. She can't do that. She can, and she is, Michael said. Jessica, as the majority owner, Mom has the right to force a sale of the property. But where are we supposed to live? Jessica asked, panic rising in her voice. I guess we'll have to figure that out, Michael said. Just like Mom had to figure out where she was going to live when we kicked her out. Jessica was beginning to understand the full scope of their situation. Michael, if we're forced to sell the house, How much money will we get? Michael did some quick calculations in his head. If the house is worth $600,000 now, and we still owe $300,000 on the mortgage, that leaves $300,000 in equity, and we own 40% of that, Jessica said. Which means we'd get $120,000, Michael said. Jessica, that's not enough to buy another house in this area. So we'd have to move, Jessica said. We'd have to move, and we'd probably have to downsize significantly. Michael said. Jessica felt her perfect life crumbling around her. This is all your mother's fault. No, Michael said firmly. This is our fault. We brought this on ourselves. How can you say that? Jessica demanded. Because it's true, Michael said. Jessica, Mom helped us buy this house, lived here quietly, for 3 years, without causing any problems, and we repaid her generosity by trying to kick her out on her birthday. She was cramping our style, Jessica said weakly. Our style? Michael asked. Jessica, do you hear yourself? We were living in a house that she mostly paid for, and we were complaining that she was cramping our style. Jessica was beginning to realize how ungrateful and entitled they had been. So what do we do now? We try to make this right, Michael said. How? Jessica asked. We find Mom, and we apologize, Michael said. We beg for her forgiveness and hope she's willing to work something out with us. And if she's not, Jessica asked, then we lose our house and start over, Michael said. Michael spent the next day trying to track down his mother. He called her friends, her former coworkers, even her doctor's office. Finally, he got a lead from Mrs. Patterson, Catherine's neighbor, from her old apartment building. Oh yes, Catherine stopped by yesterday, Mrs. Patterson said. She's staying at the Hampton Inn downtown while she looks for a new place to live. Michael felt a surge of hope mixed with guilt. His mother was living in a hotel because of what they had done to her. Michael drove to the Hampton Inn and asked the desk clerk to call Catherine's room. Mrs. Rodriguez, the clerk said into the phone. There's a Michael Rodriguez here to see you. I see. I'll let him know. The clerk hung up and turned to Michael. I'm sorry, sir, but Mrs. Rodriguez says she's not available to see visitors. Can you please call her back? Michael asked desperately. Tell her it's urgent. Tell her I need to talk to her about the house. The clerk made another call. She says she has nothing to discuss with you about the house. Her lawyer is handling everything. Michael felt his heart sink. His mother was so angry that she wouldn't even see him. Can you give her a message? Michael asked. Of course, the clerk said. Tell her that I'm sorry, Michael said. Tell her that I know I made a terrible mistake, and I want to make it right. The clerk relayed the message and listened to Catherine's response. She says it's too late for apologies. The legal process has already begun. Michael left the hotel feeling defeated. His mother was determined to follow through with the forced sale of the house. That evening, Michael sat down with his children to explain what was happening. Dad, Sophia asked, why is Grandma suing us? Catherine felt like she was in a nightmare. Michael, how can you do this to me on my birthday? Mom, the timing isn't ideal, Michael said, but we need to move forward with our plans. Your plans? Catherine asked. What about my plans? What about my life? Mom, you'll have a life at the senior community, Michael said. A better life, with people your own age. Catherine looked at the lease agreement and saw that it was for a tiny one-bedroom apartment at a cost of $3,000 per month. $3,000 a month, Catherine said. Michael, I can't afford that. You'll have to figure it out, Jessica said. Maybe you can get financial assistance or something. Catherine stared at her son and daughter-in-law in disbelief. They were essentially evicting her from their home and expecting her to pay for expensive housing that she couldn't afford. Michael, Catherine said, I can't believe you're doing this to me. Mom, we're not doing anything to you, Michael said. We're helping you transition to a more appropriate living situation. On my birthday, Catherine said sadly. The timing is unfortunate, Jessica said, but we can't put our lives on hold indefinitely. Catherine felt tears streaming down her face as she realized that her son and daughter-in-law saw her as nothing more than an inconvenience to be disposed of. Fine, Catherine said quietly. If that's what you want, I'll move out. Good, Jessica said with obvious relief. We can help you pack this weekend. No, Catherine said, standing up with a dignity that surprised even herself. I'll handle my own arrangements. Mom, Michael said, we want to help. You've helped enough, Catherine said, cutting him off. that as Catherine walked toward the stairs to her room, she heard Jessica whisper to Michael, "Finally, I thought she'd never agree to leave." Catherine paused on the stairs, her hand gripping the railing, as she processed what she had just heard. Her daughter-in-law was celebrating her departure like it was a victory. But what Michael and Jessica didn't know was that Catherine had a secret that would turn their world upside down. A secret that would make them regret the day they decided to betray her trust and kick her out of what they thought was their home. Catherine went to her room and pulled out a locked box from under her bed. Inside the box were documents that would shock Michael and Jessica to their core. Documents that proved Catherine wasn't just a guest in their home, she was a co-owner. When Roberto died 5 years ago, he had left Catherine a substantial life insurance policy. Instead of spending the money on herself, Catherine had secretly used it to help Michael and Jessica buy their dream house. She had provided 60% of the down payment and was listed as a 60% owner on the deed. But Michael and Jessica had no idea that Catherine owned the majority of their home. They thought she was just a poor widow living on Social Security, dependent on their charity. They had no idea that without Catherine's financial contribution, they never could have afforded their beautiful house. Catherine had kept this secret for 3 years, wanting to see how her son would treat her when he thought she had nothing to offer. Now she knew the answer. He would throw her out on her birthday without a second thought. But Catherine wasn't going to let this betrayal go unanswered. If Michael and Jessica wanted to play hardball, she was about to show them what real power looked like. The next morning, Catherine made a phone call that would change everything. "Hello, Mr. Patterson," Catherine said to her lawyer. "This is Catherine Rodriguez. I need to discuss my property rights in my son's house." "Of course, Mrs. Rodriguez," the lawyer replied. "What seems to be the problem?" "The problem," Catherine said, "is that my son is trying to evict me from a house that I own 60% of." "I see," Mr. Patterson said. "And he doesn't know about your ownership." "He has no idea," Catherine said, "and I think it's time he found out." If you're enjoying this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Catherine was about to teach Michael and Jessica the most expensive lesson of their lives about respect, gratitude, and the consequences of betraying family trust. They thought they were evicting a helpless old woman. Instead, they were about to discover that they had just declared war on the person who actually owned their home. The morning after Catherine's devastating birthday betrayal, she sat in her lawyer's office with a determination that surprised even herself. Mr. Patterson, her attorney for over 20 years, reviewed the property documents with a grave expression. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Mr. Patterson said, "I have to ask, are you absolutely certain you want to pursue this course of action?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life," Catherine replied firmly. "My son and his wife just tried to evict me from a house that I own the majority of. They need to learn the truth. The legal implications could be severe for them," Mr. Patterson warned. "If you assert your ownership rights, you could potentially force them to sell the house or buy out your share." "Good," Catherine said without hesitation. "They should have thought about that before they decided to throw me out on my birthday." Mr. Patterson pulled out the original deed and mortgage documents. "Let me review the facts. When your son purchased this house 3 years ago, you provided $240,000 of the $400,000 down payment, correct?" "That's correct," Catherine confirmed. "It was money from Roberto's life insurance policy. And in exchange, you were granted 60% ownership of the property," Mr. Patterson continued. "Your son owns 40%. "Yes," Catherine said. "We structured it that way to protect my investment while allowing Michael to qualify for the mortgage." "And your son has no knowledge of this arrangement?" Mr. Patterson asked. "None whatsoever," Catherine said. "I had you handle all the paperwork through a trust to keep my involvement private." Mr. Patterson shook his head in amazement. "Mrs. Rodriguez, why did you keep this secret from your son?" Catherine thought about the question carefully. "Because I wanted to see what kind of man he would become when he thought I had nothing to offer him financially. I wanted to know if he would love and respect me for who I am, not for what I could give him." "And now you have your answer," Mr. Patterson observed. "Yes," Catherine said sadly. "Now I know that when he thinks I'm just a poor widow living on Social Security, he's willing to throw me out on the street." "What do you want me to do?" Mr. Patterson asked. "I want you to prepare a notice of ownership rights," Catherine said. "I want Michael and Jessica to know exactly who they're dealing with." "Mrs. Rodriguez, this will come as a tremendous shock to them," Mr. Patterson warned. "It should," Catherine said. "They're about to learn that actions have consequences." "What?" Catherine was meeting with her lawyer. Michael and Jessica were at home making plans for their newfound freedom. I can't believe she agreed to move out so easily, Jessica said as she measured the guest room for her new office. I thought we'd have to fight with her for months. I think she finally realized that we were serious, Michael said. Mom can be stubborn, but she's not stupid. Well, I'm just glad it's over, Jessica said. Having her here was starting to drive me crazy. She wasn't that bad, Michael said, feeling a twinge of guilt about how they had handled the situation. Michael, she was cramping our style, Jessica said. We couldn't have friends over. We couldn't be spontaneous. We always had to consider her feelings. Now we can finally live our lives the way we want. I suppose you're right, Michael said, though he was beginning to feel uncomfortable about how they had treated his mother. Of course I'm right, Jessica said. And now we can start looking at renovating the kitchen and maybe adding a pool. With the extra space and privacy, this house is going to be perfect. Michael nodded, but something was nagging at him. His mother had seemed unusually calm about the whole situation. He had expected tears, arguments, maybe even begging. Instead, she had accepted their decision with a dignity that made him feel ashamed. Jessica, Michael said, do you think we were too harsh with Mom? Too harsh? Jessica asked incredulously. Michael, we let her live here rent-free for 3 years. We were incredibly generous. But the timing, Michael said. Telling her on her birthday